Let's take a look at our order of operations house for lesson number 13. What you can remember if you're drawing this house on your own and filling in the letters is please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That will give you the first letter of each of the operations that you have to remember. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. What's very important to remember is that multiplication and division are on the same level of the house, and addition and subtraction are on the same level. We work those first come, first serve. In other words, from left to right, whichever one comes first, when we're working those particular operations. And we'll see some examples of that in just a minute. But parentheses would always trump everything. Next would come exponents. Next, multiplication and division, whichever one we hit first. And finally, addition and subtraction, once again, whichever one we come to first. And we do it left to right, just like we're reading a book. Let's look at example 1. Example 1 says negative 2 to the power of 4. Well, that negative is not a part of the exponent. Remember, it's not inside parentheses. So we're going to say we only have one negative, and we have 4 2's that we're multiplying together. Well, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is going to be 16. And it would be a negative. 16 would be our answer. Next, example 2, we have multiplication and we have addition. Let's look at multiplying our 7 times negative 6. Well, we have opposite signs. We only have one negative. One negative, negative answer. Negative 42 plus 3. Now we get to switch rules. Now we have addition. So we're going to say of negative 42, a positive 3, we have to subtract. We're going to say 42 minus 3 gives us a 39. What's our sign? The sign of the larger term. In that particular problem, we had to use both sets of our integer sign rules, addition and subtraction, and multiplication and division rules. And that's the way most of your algebra problems are. In example 3, we have addition, we have multiplication, we have subtraction. Well, multiplication has to come first. Even though it doesn't look right to us, it still has to come first in our problem. So we're going to say 5 plus, and we're going to say 9 times 4. Both of them are positive, so we're going to have a positive answer here. 9 times 4 is 36 minus 20. Now, addition and subtraction, first come, first serve. We're going to say 5 plus 36. Both of them are positive, so we'll have a positive answer, minus 20. And 41 minus 20, we will subtract them. And we keep the sign of the larger one. The 41 was larger. It's a positive 21. Example 4. We're going to work the numerator and then put it together as division with the denominator. So whatever's in our numerator, we simplify it down to one term or one number before we do the division of the fraction. So 20 minus 15 will give us 5. And it's still over a negative 1. Now we do division. 5 divided by negative 1 is really 1 negative, so we have a negative 5 as our answer. Odd number of negatives when you're dividing, negative answer. Example number 5 says 8 plus negative 4 squared. Well, we need to handle exponents first. So we're going to say 8 plus, and this time it is inside parentheses, so let's write it down like it is, negative 4 times negative 4. Let's do that multiplication first, and it's going to be 8 plus 16. 2 negatives, even number of negatives multiplied, positive answer. 8 plus 16, of course, we're adding 2 positives, we'll come up with a positive answer, 24. Let's look at an absolute value for number 6, and we treat absolute value signs just like parentheses. So they're handled, whatever is inside absolute value is handled first. Now, this is a very important problem for us because we have a negative in the absolute value and we have a positive. And normally, everything inside absolute value, when we have just one number, we turn it positive to resolve it. But you never turn anything inside absolute value positive until you have just one number. In other words, if there's an operation to be done inside absolute value, we do that first. There is. We have to say negative 3 plus 7 gives us the absolute value of a positive 4. Why positive? We subtracted them because they had opposite signs, and we kept the sign of the larger one, which was 7. So absolute value of 4 times, and I'm going to go ahead and say 7 squared is 49. I can do that. I can take the absolute value of 4, it's 4, times positive 49. And 4 times 49, I probably have to write that down and multiply it out. 4 times 9 is 36. Carry my 3. 4 times 4 is 16 plus 3. Looks like 196 is my answer. Example number 7. I've got exponents, I've got parentheses, I've got division, I've got subtraction. What comes first? Well, parentheses. Let's handle what's inside these two sets of parentheses first. 2 minus 7. I subtract them and keep the sign of the larger. It's going to be a negative 5. Now, let's handle the second one. 4 minus 3 is really going to be a 1 raised to the power of 4. So, let's do our exponents next. We're in the attic. Negative 5 times negative 5, positive 25. Remember, even number of negatives multiplied together, positive answer. Divided by, well, positive 1 multiplied 4 times is just 1. 25 divided by 1, 25. For example, 8. We've got parentheses, but we've also got lots happening inside this second set of parentheses. The first parentheses isn't really, the first one, the parentheses around the negative 10, isn't really parentheses because there's only one term, one number in there. It really is just there because of the multiplication. So I'm not going to work it yet. I'm just going to write it down, put my division, and then I'm going to worry about what's inside this big set of parentheses here. First, I've got multiplication, subtraction, multiplication. I can do my multiplications first. 5 times negative 3, odd number of negatives multiplied, negative answer. And then I'll say minus, I could say minus 7 times negative 2, which would give me a minus a negative 14. But an easier way to do that is to keep the sign with the term that you're multiplying and say a negative 7 times a negative 2. What's that going to give you? A positive 14. And the sign, the positive, became the operation. And that's just a little shortcut way to do that. Now, we're still working inside these parentheses. I'm not going to worry about this first multiplication because it's going to be easy when I get to it. I'm going to say negative 15 plus 14 is going to be a negative 1. Remember, opposite signs, I subtract and I keep the sign of the larger term. Okay, now I can do my multiplication here because I've got multiplication and division. Which one do I do first? They're on the same level. The house, I do the first one I come to in the problem. So multiplication, 3 times negative 10. Negative 30. Remember, an odd number of negatives, negative answer, divided by a negative 1. Now, I can put parentheses around that if it helps you. A negative divided by a negative. Those rules are the same as multiplication for negatives. An even number of negatives, positive answer. So 30 divided by negative 1 is a positive 30.